What's going on, everybody? It's Nick Kosko with On3 Sports. It's time for an NCAA Wrestling preview here in 2024. Brackets are out. I just did the entire thought exercise of going through all the brackets, writing them down, getting 1 through 8 on the podium. It's a lot, and these predictions are going to go pretty much out the window when the tournament starts. Let's not forget that this tournament is nearly impossible to predict. And as we go through all the weight classes, 125, impossible to predict if you've been following college wrestling this season. 125 has been the wildest weight class. I was just at Big Ten's last weekend, and even that weight class, you had a 6 seed in Braden Davis, who's now the number 1 seed in NCAA's from Penn State. He won the Big Ten, and the number 1 seed Matt Ramos, last year's national finals, was knocked out in the quarterfinals. So that's just an example of that, of 125. 174, we'll get into it with some injuries and some wild seedings. 3 former national champions are all on the same side of the bracket on the top half. It's going to be absolutely insane. I'm probably going to get some flack for some of these picks, even going 1 through 8 and saying, how the heck did you get there? Believe me, it's a nice thought exercise. You try to predict what you know. These are never 100% right. And again, I think if you can even pick the national champion for 125, you're probably a lot smarter, or maybe at least a lot luckier than a lot of other people. So let's dive right into it. Okay, we're going to go to 125 pounds. So I do have Braden Davis winning it here for Penn State. He'll take on Luke Stanich of Lehigh, the freshman, who is the 2 seed. I have Davis winning the title. And then down the line, looking at my bracket right now, Ramos in 3rd, Richie Figueroa of Arizona State in 4th, Camacho of NC State at 5th, Flynn is going to be 6th. He is the 11th seed. I have him making a bit of a run from Virginia Tech. Rutgers Dean Peterson at 7th. Then Anthony Noto, an All-American from last year, taking 8th place. So just going through it, guys like Barnett from Wisconsin or Ayala of Iowa. I mean, again, this weight class could go any which way. Could I see a guy like Dean Peterson make the finals? I'm not just saying that as a Rutgers guy. I think he could get there. He took Braden Davis to sudden victory in their first meeting in a duel. They're basically scheduled. I can't say scheduled because you have to actually wrestle that first match, but they would be a matchup in the second round of the tournament on Thursday night. A guy like Patrick McKee could be an All-American. I don't have him on the podium right now, but he's a guy who's lost to Peterson and then beat him in the Big Ten tournament. So this weight class goes probably in about 1,000 different directions. Noah Certain of Mizzou, I don't have on the podium. He could be a guy. He was the 13th seed. I mean, it's all over the place. Troy Spratley, the 6th seed from Oklahoma State. I don't have him on the podium either. So again, this weight class is so wild, but I do have Braden Davis of Penn State winning. I think he's just been wrestling the most consistently. Basically in the latter half of the season, he's 19-2 on the year. Winning Big Tens was no joke. Would he have won Big Tens if he had faced a guy like Matt Ramos in the finals? Probably, maybe not. No way. Yes, you just don't know. Okay, I mean, he ended up beating Patrick McKee of Minnesota. Could have wrestled Dean Peterson in a rematch as well. And heck, Davis, no, I don't think many people picked him to get there, but I think it's not surprising. So 125, again, I'm throwing it out there. Davis, Stanich, Ramos, Figueroa, Camacho, Flynn, Peterson, and Noto are your 1 through 8 placers at 125 pounds. Okay, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just relaying the information to you guys based on what I think is going to happen. This is going to be an absolutely wild weight class. I mean, basically all these brackets this year, I know there's been a lot of discussion about that before I get to 133 about how the seedings were so bad this year. Now, I probably could go along with that. And again, I do see a lot more conference matchups, particularly as a Big Ten guy. I see a lot of Big Ten matchups in the first round and in the second round when it comes to how these seedings played out for the NCAA bracket. So I can understand the frustration from there. I know at 133, we'll get into in a second, a guy like last year's national champion Vito Arujau is the 6th seed. And, that just comes after losing to Ryan Crookham again in the EIWA championships. And to me, it is a wild seeding, but it is what it is. And, I don't pretend to know how the math works out with the matrix and how the criteria is going to work, at least in the minds of the committee, of how they seed these people. And again, a guy like Carter Sirachi, 174, 3-time national champion, injury defaulted at a Big Ten's, only 2 losses this year. He's the 9 seed, but Shane Griffith, again, he now has 2 losses because he medically defaulted in the Big Ten finals. He's the 4 seed. And then with the way it goes, you get Mekhi Lewis is the 1 seed, Carter Sirachi is the 9 seed, and Griffith is the 4 seed. They're all in the same bracket. Was that intentional? Was it just happenstance? I mean, you have stuff like that where it comes out of nowhere. So I can't pretend to know that it should be one way or the other. I know my guy Willie Saylor suggested you go the route of possibly, for example, NJ how New Jersey high school does it: districts, regions, and states. Top 3 in districts go to regions. Top 4 in those regions go to states. 32-man brackets at the New Jersey State Tournament. And you go from there. You see them 1 through 32 at that point. So is that the solution for college wrestling at the Division I level? Maybe, maybe not. The allocations would have to be a little bit more, would have to be funkier in my mind, because then you allocate enough, and then again, you still had 47 at-large bids in total. So I really don't know how it goes. It's, I don't think there's a perfect solution, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how this tournament plays out in Kansas City. So enough about that. Let's move on to 133. All right, I'm going to get some flack for this, but I did go on record last week, or I actually should say earlier this week, when I did my Big Ten reaction for On3 Sports. My guy Dylan Chauver, I said I would not pick against him the rest of the year because of what he showed at Big Tens, and I'm not going to do it here. I can't do it. As much as Dayton Fix is the 1 seed from Oklahoma State, 3-time finalist, and again, a guy who's probably the favorite to win this weight. Ryan Crookham on the other side, the number 2 seed from Lehigh, has had a fantastic season. Obviously, has beaten Vito a couple of times, but I am going to go with Rutgers' own Dylan Chauver, who got the 4th. He got a great draw. He had a great seed when the seedings came out. Got the 4th seed. I'm going to go with him to win the national title. This could go another way, like a guy like Dayton Fix or Ryan Crookham winning it. Could I see Vito winning it as well? Yes, but now based on what I saw from Chauver at Big Tens, the way he took out Miller first, I beg your pardon. He took out Braxton Brown of Maryland first, and then he took out Brody Teske, Tech Dylan Ragusin, who beat him twice earlier in the season. That type of offense, to me, is just going to work so well at the national tournament. As long as he's healthy and firing off like he did last weekend, he has a great shot to at least get to the semis. But I am going to pick the upset, because you got to pick some upsets here, and I'm going to throw a little homerism out there. Yes, I do cover Rutgers. I've been covering them for about 10 years now. But I will pick Dylan Chauver to win the weight. And again, I was on record. I cannot pick against him again. I said it. I picked him to lose the Big Ten finals. He proved me wrong, and I said, all right, I'm not picking against him the rest of the year, so I won't do it here. So I got Dylan Chauver winning the national title from Rutgers. I got Ryan Crookham finishing 2nd. Fix will finish 3rd. Vito will finish 4th, so he'll lose that 3rd-place match. I have Ragusin finishing 5th. Nick Bouzakis making a bit of a run. He had an at-large bid. He got knocked out early by Brody Teske in the Big Ten tournament, but I have him going and wrestling all the way back to 6th place. Sam Latona at 7th, and I have Van D from Nebraska at 8th. So a Big Ten, kind of Big Ten heavy at 133 a little bit. If I count them up real quick, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, not too Big Ten heavy, but half the All-Americans are come from the Big Ten. It's a loaded weight class. Could go any which way. Crookham could very win this weight class. Vito can win it. Fix can obviously win it. I would say he probably is the favorite, but again, I got to pick an upset somewhere. I will pick Dylan Chauver to get there. I think we're going to get Fix against Chauver on one side in the semis, and then Crookham against Vito on the other side. You'll notice I don't actually have Kyle Rin being an All-American. I'll tell you where I have him dropping out here. Let's take a look. Let's go back through the brackets. That's where I have Bouzakis. I have Bouzakis knocking him off in that blood round. So that's going to be very tough to see your 3 seed not even get on the podium, but another guy who probably could end up beating a guy like Vito and getting to the semifinals as well. But that's just the way these brackets go. And again, these predictions are just so hard when you look at each of them. And then, of course, when you drop somebody from the winner's bracket to the consolation bracket, you're like, how in the world can you do it? How in the world do these guys just – it's almost like, how do these guys become All-Americans? It's so difficult. And this year, I feel like is just on a different level compared to years past. So, all right, let's move to 141 now as I flip over my little bracket packet. And again, this was all my chicken scratch on these brackets where, I almost like lost my place a couple times. So, all right, in order, here we go. I got Bo Bartlett of Penn State winning it over Jesse Mendez. Rematch of the Big Ten championship. I had Bartlett initially over Real Woods. Actually, take that back. I had Real Woods over Bo Bartlett in the Big Ten finals. Did not happen. Mendez made the run, beat Bartlett in sudden victory with a late takedown. So, but I do have Bartlett getting the payback right here. It just seems like when it comes to NCAAs, we're going to see the Penn State guys take it a step further, and you'll notice that in my picks later on. It's just the way Kale coaches, the way those teams get up after the Big Ten tournament. They just seem to just turn it up a notch when you maybe don't expect them to. We're like, okay, yeah, they'll be an All-American and they'll finish 3rd or something like that. And a guy like Bo Bartlett, who is the 2 seed, it's like, all right, yeah, you can see him in the national finals, but Mendez beat him. Mendez didn't have to beat him again, right? I do have Bartlett winning this one. So I got Bartlett Mendez, your top two. I do have Real Woods finishing third. I have Lachlan McNeil of North Carolina. He's been a stud this year. He's the 6th seed. I have him finishing 4th. Anthony Echemendia from Iowa State in 5th. Brock Hardy of Nebraska in 6th. I have Cale Happel in 7th. Where is he seated? He actually is seated 7th as well from Northern Iowa. And then I have Ryan Jack, the 4th seed, finishing 8th. So those are your All-Americans at 141 based on how I wrote them down here in my predictions. Again, these could be totally wrong. They could be 100% right. You never know. This is the way I feel it's going to end up. And again, I think your top 3 guys in this week are from the Big Ten. Again, Bartlett, Mendez, and Woods in whatever order you want to put them in. I know Mendez is the 1 seed by virtue of winning the Big Tens. But again, I got Bartlett over Mendez in the finals. So let's move on to 149 here. Let's see. Okay, got that up now. So 149 pounds. Ridge Lovett, I do have him winning the national title. Just last week, I had Austin Gomez of Michigan taking out Lovett. And whenever those two guys wrestle, it's must-see TV. I had Gomez beating Lovett in the Big Ten finals. I do have Gomez getting back, though, to the NCAA finals here in a rematch with Ridge Lovett. Now, Gomez is the 6th seed. Based on his draw, he only had 11 matches total this year, but I do have him taking out Jackson Arrington in the quarterfinals, and I do think he's going to take out Kyle Parko of Arizona State in the semifinals. So you're going to get a Lovett-Gomez rematch in the NCAA finals, but I do have Lovett taking it this time, so I'll take the Cornhusker to win the national title here in 2024. Gomez taking 2nd. I do have Parko wrestling back to 3rd. Caleb Henson, very interesting guy. I'm going to have him wrestling true to seed. He's the 4th seed from Virginia Tech. I have him dropping a match to Lovett in the semis, but he'll go back and wrestle up to 4th. Arrington, I have finishing 5th. Tyler Kasak of Penn State, I actually have him finishing 6th. Chance Lamer at 7. I have Lamer, I believe, was the 10 seed, if I look at it correctly. Yes, Cal Poly for the Michigan transfer. I have him getting to the quarters, but losing to Parko, but I have him finishing 7th. And then Casey Swiderski, I have him in 8th place. So those are all Americans. Lovett, Gomez, Parko, Henson, Arrington, Kasak is 6th, Lamer 7th, and Swiderski is 8th. So, but again, I think this is Ridge Lovett's weight. I think Gomez is too good. And, the way, when I watch him wrestle, I feel I know he didn't wrestle as much this year, but I have like a renewed sense with Austin Gomez. He was good to go for Michigan. I believe at 9-2, his only 2 losses are to Ridge Lovett. 1 was in regular season, and then again you go to the Big Ten finals last week, a 1-point loss. But I do have Gomez just running the table again until the finals and dropping that one to Lovett. But again, I think Lovett's just been on a different level this year since he came back from his red shirt in 2023. All right, 157 as we move along here, almost at the halfway point. This one, to me, was pretty easy to pick a champion at least. Levi Haynes, Penn State, got to the national finals last year, dropped that match, but he's got a chance now. He lost to North Carolina's Austin O'Connor in 2023, but I have him winning the national title this year here in a second go-round. Won the Big Tens last week over Will Luwan of Michigan, but I do have Levi Haynes running the table here, going undefeated here in 2024, winning it over Meyer Shapiro of Cornell. Shapiro's been a very impressive freshman, 23-2 on the season. He's the 3 seed. I have him beating actually Jared Franick, by the way, of Iowa in the semifinals. I think Franick is going to go on a bit of a run here as I believe he's the 10 seed. Yes, he is, taking out Ja'Cory Teamer of Arizona State in the quarterfinals. And on the flip side, I have Haynes beating Ryder Downey, another impressive guy, 20-4 this year, the 5th seed from UNI. But Haynes over Shapiro in the finals. I do have Franick wrestling back to 3rd. Will Luwan finishing 4th. Speaking of Will Luwan, and just talking about him real quick, he wins everything. And I know everyone makes the jokes, and I think I said this in my last video. Everyone makes the jokes. He loves wrestling past regulation, wins in overtime all the time, very stout defensively, doesn't score a lot, but he'll beat you 1-0. He'll beat you 3-1. He'll beat you 4-1, whatever the case may be. The occasional flair. He had a pin in the Big Ten tournament last week. I think Luwan's going to make some noise wrestling all the way back. Have him dropping to the 3rd round of wrestlebacks. Actually, I take that back to the 2nd round. So I have him trying to find where I had him on the original bracket here. Yep, here he is. So I have him winning the first match over Chase Saldate at Michigan State. And again, I mentioned the Big Ten and the conference matchups in that first round. He'll take on Peyton Robb, another Big Ten matchup in the 2nd round. I have Robb beating him, then Robb losing to Haynes in the quarterfinals. So I have Luwan dropping, but then he goes on a run there. He'll lose to Franek, another Big Ten guy, in the third place match. Ryder Downey, I have him finishing fifth. Michael Blockus, I'd like him to make a bit of a run here. I know he fell back a little bit in the Big Tens last week, but I like when he wrestles free. He's a very exciting guy from Minnesota. He came back, basically just said it's an effort type of year. You know what I mean? So the guy's already fighting MMA, but I do like him a lot. I like him to make a run in this tournament, finishing sixth. I do have Teamer becoming an All-American. I know he's the 2 seed. I have him finishing seventh, and I do have Peyton Robb after some trials and tribulations by losing to Haynes. He'll wrestle back, and he will end up finishing eighth. So Haynes, Shapiro, Franek, Luan, Downey, Blockus, Teamer, and Robb are your 8 All-Americans at 157. And now we are halfway through the brackets right now. I'll tell you what, this was quite the exercise trying to just go put this through my brain as I was doing these brackets this morning. All right, 165 now. This is a wild bracket. Everyone's really looking at this one. This could be, 125 is a crapshoot. 133 is loaded and very exciting. All these brackets are so good this year, but I think 165, as you get towards the latter half of the weights, when you start getting towards the upper weights, 165 is where people are looking at, all right, this one could be absolutely wild, and there could be monumental upsets before we get to the finals. So I do have Keegan O'Toole winning this one. I have him winning his third national title. I picked him last year to win nationals. He proved everybody that he is still the best. He beat David Carr in the Big 12 finals. I believe the score was 8-2. And because of that, and because of the way the Big Ten ended up with Mitchell Messenbrink winning the Big Ten over Dean Hamady, he got the 2 seed. Julian Ramirez has been stout all year for Cornell, 22-2. He got the 3 seed. And because of that, Carr got moved down to the 4 seed. I could have sworn David Carr was going to be the 3 seed. Maybe he would have had a little bit more over a guy like Julian Ramirez, but Carr, identical record as Ramirez. The committee opted for Carr as the 4 seed. He's on the same side as O'Toole, and I do have them meeting up in the semifinals with O'Toole winning again. That would be their fifth matchup, and it would be O'Toole, I think, taking a series lead of 3-2 at that point, which would be absolutely wild. That'd be one of the semifinals that everyone's going to be like, all right, we have to watch that semifinal. No matter what, watch that semifinal. On the flip side, I do have Ramirez making a run to the semis as well, going up against Messenbrink. I do think Messenbrink is going to win. He will remain undefeated until he faces O'Toole. Would it surprise me if Messenbrink wins this title? No, it would not at all, actually. It wouldn't stun me because the way he's wrestled all year. We saw the comeback against Dean Hamady in the Big Ten finals last week. Messenbrink has proven time and time again that his undefeated record is no fluke. He earned the 2 seed, earned that Big Ten title. Could he beat O'Toole? Yes. Will he? I don't think so. I'm going with the Mizzou Tiger. So I have O'Toole over Messenbrink. I do have Carr wrestling back to third. Hamady's going to finish fourth in my mind from Wisconsin. Ramirez in fifth. I have Mikey Caliendo of Iowa going sixth. Camamine, beg your pardon, will go seventh. And then I have Taylor finishing eighth place. And Taylor has an interesting bit of a draw here, Antrell Taylor. So a lot of chalk here. I know Antrell Taylor is going to wrestle the seed here as the 8th seed from Nebraska. I have him winning the first 2 matches and then losing to O'Toole in the quarters. Let's see. Amin, he is the 10th seed. I actually have him getting to the quarters, losing to Messenbrink and knocking out Isaac Olenek from Oklahoma State, who I do not have on the podium. He's the 7th seed, and it'd be very interesting to see how he bounces back. But again, I mentioned how these brackets are just loaded, and once you get into the wrestlebacks, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe these guys are wrestling each other, and one of these guys is not going to finish on the podium. And that's the case when you look at Olenek and Dean Hamady in the blood round on Friday evening. That's where I have Hamady beating him. And that's where you'll see a guy like Isaac Olenek just actually not placed on the podium, which will be it is mind-boggling when you think about it. But you have to have crazy picks here. Sometimes you have to have upsets along the way. Not everything's going to be chalk because that you have to try to predict where these upsets are going to come from. As again, these brackets are never ever chalk all the way through. Otherwise, why even wrestle the tournament? So, all right, O'Toole's your winner at 165, 174 as we get into the upper weights. Here we go. Carter Starachi, if he is good to go, which he says he is, okay? Starachi said he says he's fully healthy. Is he fully healthy? If he was fully healthy, he would have wrestled in the Big Ten tournament, but I tend to believe him when he says it out loud that he is going to be if he's not fully healthy, he's as close to fully healthy as he's going to get. He got slotted 9th because of the 2 medical default losses in the Big Ten tournament. I didn't think he was going to fall that far. I figured maybe in that 3 to 6 range. The committee punished him. He really did. And now the conversation about that is like, do you set a precedent now where you see a guy like Starachi, who's a 3-time national champion. He had a match winning streak of over 60 matches, I believe, and he is your he's your 3-time defending national champion. Hasn't lost all year, and his only 2 losses this year are by medical default because they elected to him step on the mat and take the forfeit, or just take the loss by injury. And he had a combined 2 seconds of mat time when it came to the Big Ten tournament. So I guess that's the way the committee wants to punish that type of. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you call it. If you're going to punish that type of situation where that's the decision that the staff made, they knew he was going to get an at-large bid. If the committee says he doesn't deserve an at-large bid, then there's something wrong with the committee, obviously. But I really believe that he was going to be a top 6 seed, and if him falling to 9th, I mean, this is going to be absolutely wild. So I do have him winning. I have him being the number 2 seed at K. DeVos of South Dakota State. So that'll be your final, but it's interesting leading up to it because I have Starachi winning all the way through. Obviously, he'll take on what it's projected to be the number 1 seed, Mekhi Lewis. That is a national final just a couple of years ago. Let's not forget that. A couple of years ago, Mekhi Lewis and Carter Starachi wrestled in the 174-pound national final, which is insane. And they're going to meet in the quarterfinals when this arguably should be the national final this year. Arguably. I have Starachi beating him. Now, could Lewis beat him, especially if Starachi is not at 100%, and it seems like Lewis is the healthiest he's been in quite some time? Yes, I could absolutely see Mekhi Lewis winning that. And if he does, I do think he's going to win the national title. Former national champion himself back in 2019, having knocked off former Penn State national 2-time champion Vincenzo Joseph. But I have Starachi. Until Starachi actually loses a match he actually wrestles, I can't pick against him, even if he has that big knee sleeve on. So I do have Starachi winning it all. Mekhi Lewis having finishing 3rd place with a win over Shane Griffith of Michigan. He's the 4th seed. I have Griffith going to the semis, losing to Starachi. Now, Griffith is a big-time question mark. If he is good to go and good to wrestle and he's not too hobbled, yes, the semifinal run is, in my opinion, going to happen, but he's not going to beat Starachi. Starachi's probably a little bit healthier than he is. Griffith obviously had a knee injury, what it looks like, in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament. Did not wrestle the Big Ten final against Edmund Ruth of Illinois. I'll get to him in a second, who actually had finishing 5th. But Griffith, if he's badly banged up, I don't know. I got to imagine he's going to wrestle. It's not like they would slot him in there and then giving this amount of time towards or until the national tournament that he's not going to wrestle. But how good is he going to be with that hampered knee? If he's good enough to go, I could see him making a run to the semifinals. It could be a situation where, now I don't see this happening, but if he does get to the semifinals and has a chance to get to the finals against Starachi, he'll wrestle. But if he loses there, could I see a situation where he defaults out and finishes and just takes the 6th place, but he's going to be an All-American regardless? We've seen it before, not necessarily at nationals, but we've seen it in conference tournaments. Could I see that where he doesn't further destroy his knee? Maybe. Do I think he's the type of guy to do that? Probably not. He's a very tough dude. So, but I'm not going to, I really can't, you can't rule anything out, especially in these situations where you see a guy like Starachi and a guy like Griffith that are banged up. The seedings are all out of whack here, but it's amazing how you have 3 national champs on the same side of the bracket. As I mentioned before, Edmund Ruth, you're a Big Ten champion. Again, he got it by medical default because, again, Griffith could not wrestle, but I have him finishing 5th. He got the 3 seed. Rocco Welsh, really big fan of him from Ohio State. I actually have him getting to the semifinals and falling to DeVos, but I will have Welsh finishing 6th. Patrick Kennedy of Iowa have him finishing 7th. And then I'm a big fan of Penn's Nick Incontrera. I have him finishing 8th. I think he's going to make quite a bit of a run here at NCAAs. I actually have him making a run to the quarterfinals as a 10th seed and then able to wrestle back, taking out Harvard's Philip Canigliaro. I know they've gone back and forth, and I actually have him taking on Edmund Ruth, who I just mentioned before, but Ruth beating him in that wrestle back round that is after the blood round. So at that point, Incontrera will fall into that 7th, 8th place match with Patrick Kennedy. So that's the way it stands at 174. It's Starachi's weight until proven otherwise, even with the injuries. But it's going to be fascinating to watch to see, especially how all 3 former national champions fare on that same side of the bracket. All right, 184. We're looking at a little bit of chalk here, but Parker Keckheisen, to me, from UNI, is going to be your national champion. He's undefeated for a reason. He's been absolutely dominant all season long. I love the way he's wrestling. It seems like he just got better and better year to year. He's at 26-0. I believe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be 4 wins right there, or 5 wins right there. Beg your pardon. So he'll be over 30 wins this year and be undefeated. I have him taking out Bernie Truex, by the way. And I mentioned before how the Penn State guys obviously just wrestle up. Okay, they just keep getting better as the season progresses, and once they come to those 3 days in March, they just seem to just wrestle even better compared to the competition. So I do have Bernie Truex as the 6th seed, making a bit of a run here. The big one is going to be a projected quarterfinal against Dustin Plott of Oklahoma State. Now, normally I would probably pick Plott to go to the finals, but for some reason I just have a feeling that Truex is going to knock him off, and he'll knock off the Big Ten champion Isaiah Salazar, who he just lost to in sudden victory just last week in Maryland. So I have Truex over Salazar in the semis, and Keckeisen over the 4-seed Trey Munoz of Oregon State, but Keckeisen winning it all. So Keckeisen and Truex as the top 2. Dustin Plott, I have him wrestling back to 3rd. Salazar 4th. Munoz is going to be 5th. Nebraska's Lenny Pinto, big fan of the way he wrestles. I have him finishing 6th. And then I have Izerov as the 7th place finisher. He's a fascinating watch. So Aaron Izerov from Columbia, he is at the 13th seed. I have him winning his first round match, but losing to Munoz in the second round. But I love the way he wrestles. He's being a guy in Chris Foca from Cornell, who I actually do have finishing 8th. And again, I have Izerov over Foca. Again, he just has his number this year, and Foca hasn't made that big jump from going up to 74 to 84 this year. He's still All-American caliber. I have him finishing on the podium, but I think Izerov just has his number right now, and I think Izerov has been wrestling well enough to make a run on the WrestleBack. So Keckeisen, Truex, Plott, Salazar, Munoz, Pinto, Izerov, and Foca are your top 8 at 184. 2 weights to go. Let's go to 197. All right, this one, I see a lot of the conversation about whether this weight should be next topic or not. I think it is. It's Aaron Brooks. I think it's Trent Hidley in the finals. Brooks is going to win this one. I said last week, or I should say earlier this week, that I'd be stunned if Brooks doesn't get every win by major at minimum. Now, could I see him majoring Hidley? Yes. Will he in reality? Probably not, because Hidley's, I think, is the toughest matchup for him, the best guy to potentially knock him off. And again, we know how hard it is to win 4 national titles. I have Starachi getting his 4th national title, and I have Brooks getting his 4th national title. We thought it was a foregone conclusion last year that Spencer Lee and Yanni were going to get their 4th national titles. Only Yanni got it. Lee got knocked off in the semifinals, so you're bound to have maybe one of these guys lose, whether it's the semis, whether it's the finals. It's rarefied air. And the fact that Penn State could have 2 of them in the same year is absolutely mind-boggling. And obviously that would be historic. But I do have Brooks beating Trent Hidley in the finals. I do have Tanner Sloan finishing 3rd. I have him losing to Hidley in the semis. Michael Beard. So I have all chalk right now going to the semis, the 1 through 4 seeds. Michael Beard of Lehigh will lose to Aaron Brooks, the former Penn State wrestler, in Michael Beard. But I do have Beard finishing 4th as well. Rocky Elam of Mizzou, I have him in 5th. Jacob Cardenas of Cornell in 6th. Stephen Buchanan of Oklahoma in 7th. And I do have John Poznansky of Rutgers making a bit of a run here and getting 8th place on the podium. Now, Poznansky is going to have an interesting draw here. He's the 14th seed. He would have Sloan in the second round. So, again, I have Sloan going there. But then Pod's going to have rematches against guys like Jackson Smith of Maryland, where that match could go either way. So a guy like Jackson Smith, could he be an All-American? Yes. And based on the way I have the predictions going, if you have a Poznansky-Smith matchup in that 3rd round of WrestleBacks, which would be the second one Friday morning, could Smith win that one again? Absolutely. Jackson Smith is a dog, and I still can't get out of my head. You go back to their quarterfinal match of Big Tens just last week, Jackson Smith, nasty duck under in sudden victory. So Jackson Smith, if he, the way I look at it is, if Smith and Paz are on that part of the WrestleBacks right there, to me, the winner is going to become an All-American. They get Stephen Little of Little Rock. Now he's been amazing this year, but I do have him falling in the blood round to Poznansky, and then from there, Paz will finish 8th. So could go the other way. I love the way Poznansky's been wrestling this year. He's adjusted to the 197-pound weight class. He's had some tough ones. But it seems like all his tough ones are just one takedown matches, so it could go the other way. I do think he's going to turn it up here and finish 8th, actually given. So, quote unquote, my Scarlet Knights, 3 All-Americans this year in 2024. So Brooks, Hidley, Sloan, Beard, Elam, Cardenas, Buchanan, and Poznansky, your top 8 at 197. So let's go to heavyweight. Heavyweight to me is a foregone conclusion from one side of the bracket. Greg Kirkvliet to me from Penn State is going to be your national champion. He'll go undefeated. He'll run through this bracket. For the most part, I have him with a rematch with Ohio State's Nick Feldman. That was the Big Ten final last week. I actually have Feldman making a bit of a run as a 9 seed here and getting to the quarterfinals. Feldman will be an All-American. I'll reveal his place in a second. But Kirkley again to the finals, taking on younger Bastida. And it seems like everyone's picking Bastida as the one guy who could be Kirkley, because you look at Wyatt Hendrickson of Air Force, who just lost to Bastida. Hendrickson was thought to be that guy against Kirkley, but Kirkley had handled him at that All-Star Classic. I mean, we're going back to November. So could it be different now? Much closer match? Sure, but I think Bastida is going to have Hendrickson's number. So Kirkley over Bastida. That's your national final. That'll be Bastida's only loss of the year. So they're 1-2. I do have Hendrickson wrestling back to third. He'll take out Colton Schultz of Arizona State. So your top 4 are going to be your top 4. Zach Elam of Mizzou, I have him finishing 5th. I believe he's the 6th seed. I take that back. I do have Nick Feldman. Nice run here in the wrestleback, getting to 6th place. And then I have in the 7th place match, we're going to go with Taylor. And then Lucas Davison will be the 8th place finisher. Taylor is an interesting one right here, trying to find a seat from Lehigh. He's a 5th seed, but I do have him becoming an All-American. So one more time there, it's going to be Kirkley, Bastida, Hendrickson, Schultz, Elam, Feldman, Taylor, and Davison as your top 8 at heavyweight. So who wins the team title? Penn State. Be stunned if it was anybody else, obviously. So those are my picks. Who knows how they're going to go? I would be thrilled if I had a correct percentage of over 50%. If that's the case, then we're looking at a successful run of predictions for the 2024 NCAA Tour. Looking forward to it. I'll be out there in Kansas City for On3 Sports, and also doing some Rutgers wrestling coverage as well. Again, my broadcasting days this season for Rutgers are obviously over, but again, we'll still provide them coverage as well on social media, and of course with On3 Sports, getting your national look at the NCAA Wrestling Tournament this year as well. So that'll do it for me. I'm Nick Kosko for On3 Sports, saying so long.